Welcome, people of the pod, to Office Hours with Carp and Loge, Season 4, Episode 3, 11? I don't know, losing track. As always, my name is Peter Loge. I will be your co-host this morning. I'm an associate professor in the School of Media and Public Affairs at the George Washington University and a strategic communications consultant. And I am joined, as always, on this podcast by
Dave Carp, also an associate professor in the School of Media and Public Affairs at George Washington University. The reason I like hanging out with Peter Loge on this podcast is because compared to Peter, I'm not losing track. It's all relative, folks. It's all relative. It's all about Welcome to Office Hours, where we make fun of each other and talk about UFOs.
I'm here for you, Dave. This is really, therapy is expensive and this isn't free. Sponsors write a check, but it's less expensive than therapy. So I figure I'm here for you.
Can you, how depressing would it be if my solution to having a therapist was I just talked to Peter on a podcast? That's not healthy. That is not healthy at all.
I think
therapy is good, listeners. Talking to Peter, less so.
There's a lot of what's wrong with the world. I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm going to get on social media. That will fix everything. Everybody's just sad and depressed together. And it's just, I don't know.
Some men will start a podcast rather than going to a therapist.
Yeah, right. Either that or watch more sports.
Yeah.
So stuff is going on. It's been quite the 2 weeks. A bit of an unexpected couple of weeks in global news. What do you got, Dave?
I want to share with the listeners what I said to you yesterday, which is it's not clear whether or not we're now shooting down a bunch of UFOs. I think after we shot down the one big Chinese balloon that everybody could see, so everyone talked about for a few days, I think what's happening is now they're just noticing a bunch of other spy balloons out there and they're shooting those down too, or there's just a bunch of junk up there that they're catching and knocking down. But I was at a conference over the weekend and I was being a good conference goer by not looking at social media. And then at some point, I looked at social media for a minute and I read the New York Times article about how, they've just shot down a cylindrical unidentified flying object in Canada, because Canada was like, hey, US, can you please knock that down? We're worried about it. And I just have this overwhelming feeling of, I'm just getting really annoyed if UFOs are showing up now, because I got a lot of this stuff going on. I do not have time for this to be the moment when UFOs are discovered and also we get violent with them right away.
It's mid-semester. The time I've got grading to do.
Do it over the summer. UFOs. I'm so close to being up to date on my to-do list. I do not have time or mental space for UFOs right now. Shut it down.
And
what do you think?
I want to note that the U.S. government said that they weren't space aliens, which is exactly what.
Did they finally say that? Because for a while I didn't even see them saying that. I was like, what? Can you please deny that the unidentified flying objects are coming from outer space? Please, just because you don't know where they're coming from, can we narrow it down a little? But I wasn't even hearing that.
But that's exactly what you'd expect them to say if they were space aliens. I'm just saying it could be. I'm not saying. I'm just saying it could be space aliens.
Do you think we're shooting down space aliens? What do you think?
I don't have an opinion. I'm not, I don't have an opinion on this. The timing is less than convenient.
So annoying.
Space aliens need to, they think they'd have better, I don't know, if you're a space alien and you have the technology to come here, you think you figure out the good windows. It's a crowded agenda at the moment. The agenda space is pretty full. Maybe during a lull, like a long weekend or a holiday weekend, maybe when we don't have anything else going on.
President's Day weekend, that's fine, but not now. Come on. Anyway. The weekend before Valentine's, just rude, aliens. Just rude.
Just rude.
Do you have any thoughts on the actual space balloon, the Chinese space balloon?
No, part of me thinks that this is sort of old school spycraft gone awry. Right? It used to be the rules of spycraft. Everybody knew you were spying on each other, but have some level of discretion about it. Don't be out. This is the Chinese just kind of come on, we know you're spying, but at least do it quietly. Just some level of decorum. Of course they're spying, and of course we're probably doing stuff back. And
of course we are.
I don't know. I don't care. It's bad. Stop violating international law. I don't know. That's a
Yeah,
stratcoms thing.
yeah, and I approached it mostly from a domestic stratcoms, because you're right, like, hey, we caught some of their spying. This is the balloon-based spying as opposed to the like cyber warfare spying. I'm more worried about nation states massively hacking each other than about nation states sending balloons over each other. This might be my limited imagination, but it's like, oh no, next they're gonna compromise us by finding out about Google Maps. Like, what exactly are you gonna see that you don't have on Google Earth? But the other thing that stood out to me was just the audacious Republican response where they spent several days taking pictures of themselves with their rifles pointed at the sky, as though like they're like JD Vance was like, I'm gonna handle this with my gun. I'm a real man. And I talked to my students about this a bit, but it really stood out to me that like they were just kind of vamping. Like this is just a like there's no world in which they weren't going to spend a few days finding some way to call the Biden administration weak and try to get on TV and raise money. And so this was just kind of like the theme to goof on for a few days. But like in terms of international politics, I don't think it changes much because again, they spy on us. I'm sure we're spying on them. Like, of course we are. And for domestic politics, like there's no way that this ends up mattering for how either Democrats or Republicans are really viewed or how they govern. It's just kind of killing time until something bigger comes along.
It's a thing to talk about. It's advancing Republican talking points. I mean, to that end, Nikki Haley, former ambassador, former governor of South Carolina, first woman, first person of color elected governor in the state of South Carolina, announced she's running for president. By the time listeners hear this, it will have been either yesterday or a few days ago, but when we're recording, it was this morning. And she talks in her announcement video, talks about Biden being weak on China and Russia, right? And so this is just kind of one thing. See, he's weak on China. There was a spy balloon, and he decided not to send a Sidewinder missile over a populated region of Montana. It's a talking point. It's stuff. If it wasn't the spy balloon, it'd be something else they had to work harder to find. But that's all it is.
Yeah, well, and in particular, she had I read she had one really good line in her announcement video, saying like she's going to fight her, and she's going to go against the socialists and the wokeists, and when you kick back, it hurts more when you wear heels.
Right.
And like that's a good line, right? Because what she's really doing, like she's not running against Biden now, she's running against Trump and all the other people who are about to declare. So she's saying, I'm going to be the first person to declare, even though in 2021 she said she wouldn't run if Trump was going to. Right now, I think Trump doesn't take her. Like right now, I think Trump really takes DeSantis seriously, doesn't take her seriously. I don't take her. Like I don't think the Republicans would nominate her yet, because I think they're going to nominate the biggest authoritarian strong man that they can. Like I think that seems to me, from where I stand, to be what that party network craves. But she's announced early, and what she needs to do is signal to voters that she could be the candidate that they want to support. It means she needs to indicate that she will try to piss off the left, and also sort of differentiate herself from Trump without singling out and fighting Trump, which is sort of a hard artistry that I'm not sure any of them will pull off. So that's all she's doing there. She's not running against Biden. She's running against she's trying to carve out a niche amongst Republicans so she can get some voters.
There are a couple of parts to that, I think. So in her announcement, she talked about the need for generational change. She's 51, right, which contrasts her with both Trump and Biden pretty clearly. She's also pointed out that Republicans have lost the popular vote in the last X number of presidential elections, and that has to change. So she is noting there's a bit of a political reality. DeSantis is almost certainly running, and a number of other people are certainly running. Pence is on a book tour. News.
I'm sorry, we all know that Pence isn't going to be the nominee, right?
No, but he's running. But like the point is,
he's running. That's adorable.
She's jumping in early, a little early money. She'll get a little bit of early attention. She doesn't have to beat Trump. She has to. This is Trump's pathway to the nomination. She has to get more votes than everybody else in the crowded field. So there's one scenario in which Governor DeSantis, Vice President Pence, and President Trump split votes, and Haley's we'll go with Haley. She's a woman, she's younger, she's a person of color, she checks some boxes. She was a governor. Governors tend to do well in presidential campaigns because they can point to things they've run and they've done. Governors get elected president, vice presidents get elected members of the House and Senate, by and large, do not.
Mhm.
The exception was Obama, but he ran against another senator, right? So she could be, she doesn't have to win, she has to win enough,
Mhm.
right? And age, gender, good line, experience. And I think you're right that Trump hasn't attacked her. Trump hasn't given her snarky nicknames. And my guess is that's because Trump doesn't take her seriously.
Right.
The moment she becomes a real threat, Trump lashes out. Now he can afford to be magnanimous, right? But the moment she picks
The
up
other
steam,
drama that has happened since we last talked was Trump has started going after DeSantis for I think it was back when DeSantis was 23. He was a high school teacher and really liked going to parties with his students. So like some pictures surfaced that I think had been around back in the day. But Trump started talking about like, oh man, I don't know, this guy really likes hanging out with the young girls, which like from Trump is whew. And
right.
what matters there is that led to a bunch of the like online right erupting over like Bill Mitchell, who was one of the most obnoxious Twitter Trumpists back in the day, tweeted about how like he wanted to support Trump this time, but he just can't because he's going after DeSantis like this. So like we're already seeing the like Trump DeSantis online right fight spill out. And like I think Haley or anyone else who isn't one of those two is basically hoping that the two of them bring each other down, and then out of the wreckage you can become the nominee. On the one hand, like the value of that is there's still so much time that could happen. On the other hand, they're probably not going to bring each other down. Like one of them will still probably end up the nominee because like that wreckage doesn't happen in a way that actually takes people off the field.
Maybe it's a long way. It's a long way, but it is worth
it's a long way
noting.
and it's a long shot.
Yeah, long way and a long shot. Good line. And it is worth noting, Haley is carving out a space, generational change, but also noting publicly, like in her announcement, that Republicans keep losing the popular vote nationally, which is I'm not sure that it's brave, but it's notable that a leading Republican is saying this. And she's not like, she's a grown-up. I mean, she's a governor, she's an ambassador.
Right.
This isn't, some small town mayor making a run for something. This is a real person. So,
ooh, did you just take a shot at Mayor Pete?
There are other small
Peter
town
Loge taking shots at other Peters. We're seeing it here, folks.
I'm kind of a Mayor Pete fan, but he was a like nobody like Bloomington. Like, well, who are you? Like, you ran for chair of the DNC. Who are you? But Governor Haley, Ambassador Haley, like, has a legit, hard-earned, well-deserved national profile.
Yeah.
So at any rate, all right. So moving on from that, where do you want to go next? I got a couple things. Where do you want to go next?
Dealer's choice. Where do you want to go?
Let's talk State of the Union address.
Let's do it.
That's fun to say.
Couple of things. Trying to coin terms that are not going to happen.
It's some guy walking his dog just giggled. I'm just saying. So the State of the Union address was obviously a week ago. Already like 3 shot down alien balloon media cycles in the past.
I guess it was so good that the aliens decided to arrive and take a bigger look, right?
That's what it was. Hey, this looks fun. Let's check this out.
He's protecting Social Security. Sign us up. Let's invade Earth.
How do I get a piece of that action? Finally, a socialist planet we can invade, and
I'm immortal. Cool. Retirement forever.
That's what they're doing. We're becoming they're alien anchor babies, but like space aliens. What they're doing, hey, we're gonna dump our old people here in the US. They'll take care of sick people here. We've got a bunch of sick aliens.
We're gonna build a wall around the stratosphere.
This is taking a weird turn. I want to note, so State of the Union address.
State of the Union.
Unsurprisingly, didn't matter. Polling, flash polling. I don't even know what that means. Like quick texting that in the immediate wake of the State of the Union address found that most Democrats who watched the speech thought the president did a bang-up job. Most Republicans had a different perspective on that. For the Project on Ethics and Political Communication, I reached out to a handful of people about their take on the heckling. What did they think? My Republican friends who responded said, clearly the president needs to be more respectful and it's all of his fault because clearly he's off the rails. The Democratic friends said, clearly Marjorie Taylor Greene is off the rails. So once again, where you stand depends on where you sit.
Mhm.
And does this matter to the American public? Quick quiz. Does this matter to the American public?
No.
No. According to Morning Consult, I'll put this at peterloge.com/podcast and on my Medium page for the footnotes. According to Morning Consult, 44% approve of Biden's job performance and 39% believe he's keeping his promises, unchanged from a pre-speech survey. So everybody who watched the speech basically said, I told you so. So what is the point of the State of the Union address?
So I want to note a couple of things before answering that, which is, while all of that is true, State of the Union is not particularly State of the Union when you have divided government, and we are divided the way we are in 2023. State of the Union is not going to be the thing where the nation watches and like there's the line from if you remember The West Wing, which of course you do. But like there's an episode in The West Wing where he's going to give the State of the Union speech, and afterward the pollster says that like, oh, like halfway through the speech, the American public remembered why they loved you, and like his approval rating soared. Like that was a fantasy then; it's certainly a fantasy now. It does matter though in some narrower ways that he gave a very good speech. In particular, if we imagine the world where he goes there and really fumbles the speech, that sorry, I didn't need a second. We can go ahead and edit that part out.
Thank you, Alana.
Thank you, Alana. Picking back up. If we imagine a world where he goes up there and really fumbles the speech, that's also a world where we spend this week talking about, maybe somebody should challenge him. Like maybe, you know, and instead he went up there, he gave as good of a speech as you pretty much can give to this Congress in this year. And that solidifies the party network. That makes it even clearer that no, he's not going to have a real Democratic challenger. He's going to be the nominee again. He's going to have a clear field. That matters. That matters in terms of heading off any potential of like Ted Kennedy, like a Ted Kennedy challenger to Jimmy Carter, which, you know, probably matters in the 1980 race to give folks some history. So like that part matters. Him just doing well and low key reminding people like, oh yeah, there's a lot to really like about Biden. Like Joe Biden having a good Joe Biden night on the national stage is good, but within the boundaries of a State of the Union to a divided government just can't accomplish that much, right? Like the eyes of the nation are not upon you anymore because it's just a Tuesday in 2023. And since we have divided government, there's no world in which the State of the Union is going to convince Jim Jordan not to hold a bunch of witch hunt hearings. Like that's still going to happen. Everything's going to carry on as it was. So really the point is like the State of the Union is a focusing event with less focus than we would like it to have. It's still as big of a focusing event as you're probably going to get in this off year. So you do with it what you can, and you know, like you like hit those pitches as hard as you can, even though we're in creating a baseball analogy on the fly, which I should not do. Like you're hitting those pitches as often as you can, even though like the walls the outfield have been moved back 300 feet, so you're never gonna knock it out of the park. How's that?
Middling, we'll let you get away with it. You saved it, sort of saved it in the middle. Sort of
Tried my best. What do you think?
I would aim for the corner at Fenway and play it off the wall. I think there are a couple of good points to that.
Of course, you're making a Boston reference to me.
Of course, I make it about Fenway. Of course, I make it about Fenway. So I think several things are going on that are worth noting. The talking point after the speech was Biden's feisty. Mm-hmm. He picked a fight in real time. The Republicans fell into his trap and he fought back, which, like shooting down space alien weather balloons. Have we considered that? Maybe they're aliens from Mars testing our weather. Maybe they're not Chinese weather balloons. Maybe they're like Martian or Jupiterian. I'm just putting it out there. at any rate, it helps make the story, hey, Biden's strong, Biden's running. This was a great kickoff event. All this dumb speculation that was never true about Biden not running turns out was dumb speculation that isn't true about him running. Second, ratings are down. Still a lot of people, 20 million people, which is a lot of people. Roughly the same number of people who watched the primetime January 6th hearings, one of the ones in June. And I think roughly the same as watched what would have been the Biden interview on Fox before the Super Bowl, had he actually agreed to do it. Right, roughly 20 million people watched the 5.5-hour pregame versus the 100 million who watched the game itself, and the more than that who watched the halftime show. The other piece is, so a couple of other pieces in this. One is, Democrats are saying he's strong, he's good, this is great, he's accomplishing more than I thought, he picked that fight, protect Social Security. Republicans, this is pre-State of the Union address, but according to Pew, at the end of January, most Republicans would prefer not compromising with Biden, right? So most oppose compromise. According to Pew, 64% of Republicans, leaning Republicans, want Republicans to stand up to Biden on issues important to GOP voters, even if it makes it harder to address critical problems. So Republicans are coming into the speech looking for ways to oppose compromise. They would rather hurt GOP voters than help Joe Biden. Right? So the State of the Union kind of encapsulates all of these sorts of things. But as you say, it's a focusing event. On one hand, there is an agenda setting function within Congress. Agency heads do what he says. Interest groups raise money off of it. President Biden mentioned this thing. He took our line. We have to, President Biden ignored our thing, the most important issue of the day. So it's a hook for advocacy groups. The other thing it does is lead the campaign to do other campaign things that the rest of the nation isn't paying attention to, right? So Biden and the Biden team briefed Black Caucus members and staff in an invited group, and you don't know who's invited because not everybody's on Zoom, right? But it was hey, here's what we're doing. Here's where he's funding HBCUs. And this really matters to your community and things on which you're working, and we care a lot about that. And then the same with Hispanic institutions, right? So it's these series of campaign events that the rest of us don't notice, right? So the campaign matters, but none of those things can happen but for the speech itself, right? Which just reinforces kind of a good rule of thumb in strategic communications. You do something to have done it. The thing in itself, like you got to do it, but really the point is to build on the thing itself, to turn it into op-eds, into social media posts, into, I don't know, whatever hellscape Twitter has become, into you send surrogates out, you do it's all the other stuff that becomes a stratcom event rather than just the, I don't know, 75, 85 minutes, however long he went on. And didn't, by the way, I like the speech. I thought it was terrific. He hit points I agree with. He didn't mention the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, which bothered me. I like that the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. was in the audience again. I like that Senate Majority Leader McConnell was wearing a Ukrainian tie. I don't know if you noticed that, but the tie was the colors of the Ukrainian flag. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there to like, but I'm not sure why he didn't mention Ukraine or mention the earthquake, which is devastating beyond even what we take to be high level devastation. And I don't know, that just bothered me. Anyway, that's my rant.
So setting aside the earthquake point, which, I mean, yes, I agree, like say a few words on it, to have said a few words on it, right? Like his saying words on it shows that we recognize the damage. It doesn't direct policy. It doesn't. Like,
no, he could say America's thoughts. The American people's thoughts are with the people of Syria and Turkey in this time of crisis.
Yeah, it's literally thoughts and prayers, right? Which is all you could do. But in this case, you're giving a speech, right? Yeah.
Right, and even a week ago, that's all we could do. Now, like you can get a relief and opening borders and all this kind of stuff. But a week ago, all you could do is look on and go, "Oh my God, let us know what we can do."
That's a good point. Yeah, but on the broader point, like what sticks out to me from a Stratcom perspective is, I think it's important to level set for yourselves with realistic expectations, right? If you go into the State of the Union saying, like, this is going to be the moment that defines the next year, then you're going to be disappointed. You're going to look around and say, like, hey, why didn't we do it? If you go into it and say, it's 2023, we have divided government, let's make the most of it. Like, let's do what we can with what we have. Then I think you can make smart choices and do the best with it, the best that you can with this, recognizing the limitations that are imposed by this state of government and governance today.
And I think that's a good lesson in stratcoms in general, is what's this moment? What can we get out of this moment? Realistically, what's going to happen as a result of this moment? And it also changes the State of the Union itself, right? And we can talk about this, but I want to put out, I know part of me wants this show to go away, right? So according to the US Constitution, the president has to regularly report to Congress on, what's going on. And the first handful were speeches, President Washington and others. President Jefferson did not. He sent a letter. And between Jefferson and Wilson, it was a letter. And by all accounts, a boring letter. It really was like a committee report. We did this, we did these sorts of things, we did these sorts of things. Wilson takes to the floor. It doesn't become called the State of the Union until I think the 1940s. And now it's a circus, right? President Reagan initiated bringing people into the gallery, which is incredibly persuasive. There are ethical questions about it. And Biden's it was a campaign speech. I mean, there's sort of no other way to put it. So part of me wants Biden to get reelected. And then in his first State of the Union address after the election, say, you know what, we're going to take a year off. This is a circus. I'm going to issue a complete report to Congress. I will happily have briefings. I will happily come talk to you. We're not going to do it with cameras, to maybe make it less circus.
What's the upside of having one less focusing event?
I mean, politically, strategically, there is no upside, right? And I think there's an upside to the country and to democratic governance to have the president come before the American people and say, here's what's going on. Here are my plans. I hope Congress can work with us. Here's what we've accomplished you may not have noticed. Here are some of the challenges, like an honest, like spin and partisan, but more of an honest reporting. I think there's an advantage to that, but we're not there. And I don't know how we get there. One way to get there is take a year off. That's a governance democracy.
I guess I don't see how taking a year off would actually get you closer to that, right? Because that year off is going to be filled with discussion of the fact of it being a year off, and that'll get turned into a bigger deal than it already is. I don't think if we then move to like, we're just going to send a memo, like that memo will also be strategic political communication.
No.
It just, won't be visual in an age where visual communication is so much of the ball game. So it like, I think we lower our expectations, but we keep the event.
Then I think, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And maybe the answer is, I mean, Biden can't do it now because he's running for re-election.
Right.
And I think the first State of the Union after inauguration kind of matters to rally the country. But maybe the answer is you give as boring a State of the Union address as you can, because you can't get, if Biden gets reelected, he can't come on for a third term. There's nothing else for him to go for. So look, over the past number of decades, this speech has gotten more and more showy. I'm going to make this boring. So all of you who tuned in to listen to zingers and one-liners, not going to happen. Here's what we're going to do. And just give a straight report.
Wait, but what are you getting out of the board? Why boring? What's
there is no political upside, but you don't need a political upside anymore. What you do is
is there a governance upside to being boring?
I think maybe there's a governance upside. Maybe there's a make politics less circusy upside. Maybe it's just make politics boring again upside. I mean, just make
I'm not sold on it. I mean, look, I deeply would like to see elites regain or start to gain norms that say governance is good and we ought to do it. I don't think making the State of the Union boring helps to get there, right? Like, I think maybe like I would love to see a State of the Union where they focus on things like personnel is political and like here's how we are going to restaff our, like, focus a lot on agencies. Sure, like maybe even a State of the Union in which some of the heroes that you lift up are like government workers who are doing the work of implementing programs. But like I think you still need to, like, I think the goal of let's make this event more of a non-event, it's not just that it doesn't politically serve any purpose in terms of like partisan politics. I also don't really see how it moves us towards effective governance. So like I don't see the upside yet.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know. This song I want to noodle with,
Yeah.
because it is. I mean, it's silly.
Well, I'll tell you. So let's see. You're talking about the State of the Union. That'll be what, in 2025.
Mhm.
So if we're doing 3 seasons a year, that's gonna be season. Let's revisit on season 10 or season 11 of Office Hours of the Carpet Lounge.
So sponsors, you heard that from Dave. We're coming back. We're going to keep hounding you.
Season 11. Season 11.
Season 11.
We're already booking up our ad spots, so they should get in now. Casper mattresses. Come on.
I'll do like the members of Congress did during the State of the Union. I'll wear your pin and I'll wear your flag and your hat. Maybe I'm not going to wear a hat.
You really think that we're gonna get visual sponsors for our podcast?
We
That is
get
your
views on
thinking.
YouTube. People watch us on YouTube. They do. We could have a theme song. You could hum like the Oscar Mayer Wiener song. You could do that. Oscar Mayer, Dave will hum for you.
Or something better.
Better don't knock the Oscar Mayer Wiener song. All right, we are at 30 minutes. The dogs are getting tired. Before we go out for plugs, I do want to note that archaeologists found this is very troubling. My computer slept, so I can't pull it up exactly. In 27 million year old rocks in New Zealand, they found fossils of 350-pound penguins. Penguins the size of gorillas. The stuff nightmares are made of. All of you Jurassic Park, we're bringing back. I'm telling you, I want no 350-pound penguins, because seriously.
350-pound penguin sounds like charismatic megafauna to me. That is a big, chunky, beautiful penguin. I celebrate those penguins.
I think they'd be pissed. And I don't want to. I don't know. You turn a corner. Oh, look, there's a cute little. Oh my God. It's a big penguin. It's a big penguin.
I want to mention before we go that since we last talked, Elon Musk noticed that he was getting fewer views on Twitter. He didn't reference my Substack, but he was basically making the points that I made in my Substack. Thank you very much. He raised this with his entire engineering team and one of the 2 remaining principal engineers at Twitter. This is reported by Platformer, Casey Newton. So one of the 2 remaining principal engineers at Twitter apparently offered the explanation that he might be kind of out of the zeitgeist. Like, people might not be viewing it because they're not so into him. He fired the guy on the spot. And since then, the remaining staffers at Twitter then came up with an explanation that Musk released on February 12th, that actually what was going on is his tweets are just so popular that when he tweeted, 95% of his tweets were just not getting delivered. Like, the algorithm was breaking because of how popular Elon Musk is, their dear leader. So they've now convinced him of that. And now if you use algorithmic Twitter, everybody sees every single Elon Musk tweet and reply. They've adjusted the algorithms just to make sure that Business Daddy gets his views. Twitter is such an adorable trade wreck, and Elon Musk is the smallest man.
It's a thing. So speaking of your Substack, you're going to plug it in a minute. Your most recent Substack was history.
Recent Substack was
what I'm looking for
writing about.
I'm going to read you the headline in case you don't recall.
Please.
What I'm looking for yesterday. What I'm looking for in the Wired back catalog: history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. I prefer Julian Barnes. Take the author Julian Barnes, History of the World in 10.5 chapters. Does history repeat itself? The first time is tragedy. The second time is farce. No, that's too grand, too considered a process. History just burps and we taste again the raw onion sandwich it swallowed centuries ago.
So you think that I've spent the past 4 years studying the history through Wired magazines just to examine some old burps? That's what you think of me.
I think history doesn't repeat itself. I think history is old burps. Plug your sub.
DaveCarp.substack.com is where I write at least once a week about both current affairs and also old Wired magazines.
Anywhere else? Are you still on the Twitters?
I'm still on the Twitters. I'm on Mastodon, Dave Carp at mastodon.social, at Dave Carp on Twitter when we can stand it. That's where people can find me. What about you?
I am on my own website, peterloach.com/podcast, where you can get the footnotes for this.
Static websites.
Bring
them back.
And also on Twitter at PLOGE. I'm on Post, but apparently nobody cares. Before we go,
nobody cares about Post.
it was worth a shot. It was worth a shot. Alana, thank you as always for your patience and for your editing. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Keep sending the text and the emails, especially if you're walking a dog. I apologize for your dog, a little long. Rate us, like us, write positive reviews. We're shallow. Dave and I get paid to tell 20-year-olds how smart we are. That's our job. We're that shallow. So please give us affirmation from the void.
So I do agree that everybody should like and rate us on Twitter. I do want to also make clear, though, that I get paid to tell 20-year-olds how dumb Peter Loge is. That's my pedagogy. I have tenure, I ain't going anywhere.
And I keep coming back for that. There's nothing good about any of this. I feel like we've come full circle with the therapy. I got nothing. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Later, folks.
That took a weird turn.